The work is identifying, how can I be a better person? How could I be more patient, more reliable, more compassionate, all of these things. And then ultimately you find where you're snagged and you let go of those attachments, right? Because we're just full of attachments, like I was saying earlier, to the material world. And so I'm going inside of myself and I'm saying, where am I attached to an expectation, to an outcome, to a comfort that is impeding my ability to be true to myself? So, those are some things. And then I think a big part of it is authenticating our value system, because what we worship, what we idolize, what we hold to be true becomes us.
2, 1, 0.
Hi, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for being a seeker and wanting to improve your life. That means you're really special and you're one of the good ones, because a lot of people wants to change the world. But when you change, the world around you change. That's a quote from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And in order to change the world, each one of us needs to have individual responsibility for ourselves, for doing the work, for going within, for having the intention to become a better human and taking ownership for everything that we attract and bring into our own reality. Because this is a game. We live in the matrix and we can change a lot of things when we go within. Today I have with me Deanne Adamson. She left a career in mental health consulting to start Being True to You in 2010, the first preparation and integration coaching company for psychedelic therapies. Deanne has produced several coaching certification programs, retreats, sitter training, and once-a-year transformational recovery coaching program. Being True to You also provides preparation and integration coaching services to treatment and retreat centers for people undergoing psychedelic treatments in therapeutic settings, and much more. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hi, Diane, and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for coming here to share your wisdom with us.
Oh gosh, thank you, Orion. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to our talk today.
Awesome. So before we begin, will you be able to share maybe a childhood memory that made you feel great?
Yeah, thank you for starting out with such a cute question. I had a really good childhood, so I think I have so many good memories. I would say the best memories I have is living on a farm. It was probably around 8 years old. My dad bought a farm. He was in a different industry, but I think just to give us a good childhood, we bought cows and sheep and goats and chickens and turkeys and cats, dogs. We kind of had everything, and it was just such a sweet experience. So I think, it's hard as a child getting up at 6 a.m. to do chores, but we loved it. We just loved having purpose in the family, and we loved taking care of them. So yeah, what a sweet question. I'd have to think about a specific memory, but those are the things that draw me back to childhood. Was the responsibilities that we had, was being on the farm, tending to animals, tending to each other, tending to gardens, really living off the land, were some of the golden memories that I take from childhood.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for asking that.
yeah, thanks for sharing. That's amazing. So beautiful. Um, we live in an area where there are a lot of farms around us, and I take my little one often to the farm so he can interact with the animals, and he's not as into it as me when I was a child, but he loves it. He still enjoys himself. Uh, he rather watch like a science TV show, but but I do my best to connect him to nature and animals, and I think he got it. It's very special for a child. And do you think that living on the farm brought you more, I guess, empathy and care toward humanity and humans?
Yeah, people ask me in my adult life, how are you the way that you are? And I can tell you a little bit about what I do. And I think, I don't know, what I always think when people say that is, it's not my academic, studies. I think it comes from childhood. I think it comes from my parents, my upbringing, living on a farm for sure. I think that there's so many skills that you develop when you have to manage so many things and when you have responsibilities that you have to tend to, right? So I think it is different with our younger generations now. We've had such lucrative times with our generation that our kids just haven't had to work as hard. And so with the children, a lot of times they are indoors, they are on screens, they're fascinated by videos. But if something doesn't need the child, there isn't a responsibility, then I think there is a work ethic and a skill that is lacking and an emotional connection, right? I think that emotional connection can also be hindered when we're putting so much attention into screens. So that's great that you're taking your son outside and connecting him with nature and animals. I would say there's a lot of things that make us who we are as adults. But yeah, when I
Mhm.
look back at my childhood and I just think about all of the experiences that I had, and it was hard. It was a lot of, I guess, new challenges and new skills. But yes, you learn how to connect deeper with the land, with animals. I do think it increases your emotional intelligence. Yes, your capacity for empathy, your capacity for compassion, because you feel that as a kid. You might not feel it for your siblings because you're always fighting with them. And so you're just like, I don't care what they're going through, right? You just don't have that sometimes. It depends. But yeah, with animals, you do. You start to feel what they're feeling. And so when I read that book, Charlotte's Web, I remember like, wow, I feel like this was me, right? It was like trying to save the pig from getting slaughtered, like literally went through that same story. So yeah, I connect a lot of my early childhood experiences to who I am and where I am today.
Yes, and can you share a little bit about how you help people and a little bit about your company?
Yeah, so I started a company called Being True to You in 2010. A very unique company. I was the very first company of its kind. Before that, I was in mental health counseling. So I always had a passion to help people. And I went through a psychology degree and then a mental health counseling degree. And I was so excited to help people. And then I got into my profession and I was like, man, I just felt very limited in what I was able to do because of the medical model, the diagnostic treatment model, people getting medicated. And in fact, like some people didn't even really want to get better. They just wanted to be medicated. And so that was a turning point in my life. I was about 29 years old and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a counselor. I want to do something different. So I went out on a limb. I had no experience in business. I think I took 2 classes in college on business and marketing. I dropped out of both of them. It just wasn't really in my wheelhouse, but I was so passionate to help people and I wanted to explore a different way. So I started Being True to You as a coaching company because I could help
Mm.
people, but it was outside of the medical model. And then what happened was I met someone that was very, very unique because I was thinking, okay, I want to help young adults figure out who they are sooner in life, find the path of the true self, and just sort of wake up. I looked back at my teen years and I saw all the bad decisions I made, and I saw that my value system and my moral compass was essentially askewed. For me, the most important thing in life was popularity, was having fun, and that wasn't necessarily what was really true for me now, right? And so I thought I'm going to help young adults just wake up and kind of work through their stuff and find their passion sooner so it doesn't take to the end of their 20s or 30s or 40s. In any event, young people just weren't really ready to do that deep work. And so I ended up meeting a friend of a friend who did a very unique treatment. Orion. So this is a treatment called Ibogaine treatment. Have you ever heard of Ibogaine?
Is it coming out of Africa? Is that
Yes.
Iboga?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I heard a friend of mine did it and she raved about it, but I don't know anything about it.
So I didn't either. And I was thinking, okay, I really want to help people. And there was a different, when you start a business, there's kind of like different prospects. So you're like feeling into the different avenues. And something told me, go to Mexico and try this out. So I went to Mexico to an Ibogaine center. Now, these are detox centers for drug addiction. Iboga is this powerful entheogenic psychedelic medicine that's been used by the African tribes, specifically the Bwiti religion, for hundreds of years. They've used it as a rite of passage. They use it on their hunting expeditions. They use it, to treat cases of neurosis, like we would understand as like depression or anxiety. So it's been around for a long time. What happened was in the 1960s, there was a group of people addicted to heroin that were just recreationally trying some things, and they took Ibogaine, which is a derivative of Iboga. So it's basically the main alkaloid of Iboga extracted, and then it's put into sort of a synthetic pill. Well, it's not synthetic, but they synthesize it and they put it into a pill format. It's the actual medicine. It's not synthetic. Anyway, what happened was they took Ibogaine, and it cured their heroin addiction. So they came out the next morning, they tripped all night long, it was this wild trip, and I'm sure they had taken like entheogens before, but then on the other side of it, there was no cravings, there was no withdrawal, and there was a restored drive to live. And so these guys were just like, what did we find here? So they ended up patenting it in the 60s, and then they were doing research and then underground research. Then Ibogaine got scheduled as a Schedule 1 drug in 1971. So it kind of like pushed all the research underground. Well, some of these countries allow you to use experimental medicines, and Mexico's one of them. If somebody's in a life-threatening situation, you're allowed to use an experimental medication to save their life. Well, people with opiate addiction are in life-threatening situations. They're kind of like walking that thin line between life and death. So they're able to do it. And mind you, this is 15 years ago when I started, things have changed. So I go down there to this clinic, and I'm watching these American guys and women and Canadians, fully addicted to heroin, opiates. Not all of them got addicted to street drugs. A lot of them got addicted to pain medication after a surgery, and one thing led to the next. And so these are good people coming down here who are well-meaning, who have children and careers and some lost people. So I go down there and I'm watching, and I'm like, what am I seeing right now? So I'm seeing people go through this like 24-hour experience where you lay in a bed with eye shades and headphones, you got music on, and you do it overnight. So you start the treatment at like 9-10 o'clock at night, and it goes overnight. The first 12 hours is like the main part of it. And then it's like another 72 hours to really wear off. And in any event, I was pretty amazed. And so what I ended up doing is building a whole company on the window of opportunity that came after Ibogaine. And this just like grew to so many other things, which I can just share really quickly. So there's a window of opportunity after you take like a psychedelic therapy, and that is a chance to interrupt, negative thinking, bad habits, addictive habits, that's for sure. And then a person can sort of get a running start at a new life. And so I saw that these people were coming out who hated themselves, didn't believe in God, were very estranged from their family. If you asked them about their goals, they would become visibly angry to even think about that. We're just feeling pretty hopeless, like all of the things, right, that you would see with someone kind of struggling at the bottom. And after one night, they would come out of this experience and they're like, oh my gosh, I miss my family. I want to go on a spiritual journey. I feel so happy. I want to turn my life around. And I just thought, what is going on? And so what I did is I started coaching people in the aftercare program after they would go through this treatment. Then we started doing before and aftercare, like prepping them for it and supporting them after. And then we started getting calls from the psychedelic community around the world. People everywhere were just like saying, we hear what you're doing. Can you guys provide before and after care for us? So we started supporting a lot of these alternative, indigenous, international clinics. And then we started training people. So we were the very first company to start doing psychedelic integration coaching. And so then we started a training program because like the counselors I had hired and the people I had hired were like, we're not getting it. We don't know what to do. So I started a training program 10 years ago now. We've trained 1,500 people or so, certified over 1,000. It's been a great experience. We work with professionals and literally people from every demographic are coming through our training to understand like what is psychedelic therapies, what do we need to know about it, how can we support the process, whether we're in the medical field, we're not. And so that's what I do. I run Being True to You. And because of that early experience with Ibogaine, then it just kind of launched this whole thing, of doing preparation integration for psychedelic therapies, really understanding what are psychedelic therapies and why are people using them, what are the risks and like the contraindications and like things you need to know going into this work? And then what's the bigger point? And that's really what I think Being True to You is. It's not about psychedelic therapies at all. It's about the path of the true self. It's about
Mm.
connecting with what's most important to you in life. It's about diligently working on one's heart and one's character to elevate them in life, not externalizing the problem and solution and looking for, something outside oneself to save oneself. And so it's splintered off into so many directions. We coach individuals, we train coaches and professionals, and we also train and certify these retreats and clinics. Now, currently, we work with ketamine centers. So I don't know if you've heard of like ketamine treatment,
Yeah, I've
but we
heard.
work with ketamine centers and we do their before
And
and
that's
after
FDA
care. This is,
approved, right? Ketamine?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like still some things they're working through there, but yeah, so ketamine is an anesthetic that they use in surgery essentially. So when you go in to get surgery, they'll give you ketamine, they put you under, they give you surgery, but they have found if you give just a little bit and you don't give the whole amount, that it kind of puts you into an altered state.
So I had ketamine and I didn't even know. That's kind of cool.
Yes, yes.
I did ketamine. I just didn't know it.
Me too. I've had it 6 times in 6 surgeries and I didn't
Oh,
know.
wow.
But yeah, if you give like small doses, then it puts you into this like altered state where you can see your life from a meta view. So instead of like being behind all of your emotions where it can be difficult to have clarity on what's going on, you kind of get to like break out of that space, go above, and just like look at yourself and your life and your mental activity, your lifestyle, and see, okay, how is my everything that I'm putting out um, leading to the outcomes in my life, and what can I learn from this, what conclusions can I draw? So
Mm.
anyway, that's a little bit about what we do. It's unique and it's interesting, so any part of that you want to dive into, let me know.
What do you think happens when someone does psychedelic? Like, do they get into the spirit realms? Do they connect with their higher selves? Do they connect with their guides? Do they touch God? Do they dissolve into oneness? What do you think it is that rewires the brain to such a degree that an addict can stop their addiction within a few hours?
Yeah, so I mean, I can give you kind of the explanation scientifically of why Ibogaine is able to do that, and then the rest of it is just, in the eye of the beholder. So with Ibogaine specifically, when you ingest Ibogaine, it turns into a protein called noribogaine, and the noribogaine will then go saturate the opioid reward system. And so
Oh.
what is happening, and it's hard for them to know exactly what's happening, but it's like this is what their understanding is that the ibogaine is first going to clean out all of the cell receptor sites that are going to be corroded with long-term drug use. And they
Mm.
clean it out, and then that noribogaine is going to plug itself into the receptor sites. And so it's going to confuse the body for a few months as long as that noribogaine stays in place and make the body think that the opiate reward system is satisfied when really there's no opiates in the system. So by the time it wears off, in 90 days or so, the person doesn't even notice and they don't need opiates. So that's what we're understanding is happening on
Amazing.
like a biophysical. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So does it help also other addictions? Because people take drugs and that's an obvious addiction, but there are so many other addictions like gambling or even YouTube or anything. Does it does it do the same? Just saturate the opiate the reward centers in the brain and then people heal?
Yeah, so I think this is where we just kind of get into speculation. And the second part of the answer is that there's a connection between mind, body, and spirit, between thoughts, emotions, and our behaviors, and between our subtle body and our psyche, right? So everything is connected. And so what we've looked at in the medical system is we look at things very compartmentalized, right? So if you have a
Yes.
headache, we just look at the head, right? You have a stomach ache,
Yes.
we just look at the stomach, and we're not really looking at the whole being. And so what I think is happening when people take a psychedelic therapy is that it is addressing the whole being. Now, in
Right.
terms of how it works, this is going to be theory and speculation. For some people, it is connecting you with your higher self, your true self, with God, kind of that divine essence and power that we have. If we're in the material world, the matrix, so to speak, and we're just like plugged into the illusion, right? We understand this through our own sciences and our own physics. It's like the whole world is an illusion. And then we have like this internal awareness. And, as most people believe, we have a soul, we have a existence, an eternal existence that's in the spiritual realm. And then we come into our human body. So when we become very attached to the human world and we are very affected by the human world, we're affected by early childhood trauma and adverse experiences. We're affected by all the stressors and all the pressures as we come into adulthood. All of a sudden, we're just burdened by all of this stuff. And then we start to manifest symptoms of the mind, symptoms of the body, symptoms in our interpersonal relationships. And everything starts to break down and it becomes hard to track. For some reason, when we take a psychedelic therapy, what's happening is that it's like that whole layer is just fading away. Like all of our material world existence, some people call it the default reality, it's just sort of fading away. So a person is just able to see themselves from maybe a spiritual perspective or almost like behind the scenes. And so it just becomes easier to identify what's happening. So I would say the one way that they work is just through awareness. People are able to make connections of like, oh, I get it now. I'm struggling with depression because look at my lifestyle. Look what I'm doing with my mornings, my days, and my nights. Makes perfect sense that this is the recipe to perpetuate a depression. That's exactly what I'm doing, right? And so then we can kind of work backward. And then so that's like a psychological perspective. Then you have an emotional perspective. You're able to tap into these emotions that might be otherwise too painful, or we have too many defenses in the way, so we can't actually get to our emotions. And so there's like an emotional cleansing and healing, which is probably one of the most profound aspects of psychedelics. Is like a lot of people say it just opens the emotional floodgates on you. And then thirdly, I'll just say the detoxification. Somehow these plant herbs, when you take them, they're going into the system. And a lot of people will share this. And I had the same experience one time of being scrubbed from the inside. I could even see like these little bots like scrubbing my body. And so I think that it's detoxing the gut and the digestive system and even the brain. I think it's just like dumping stuff out, because you can tell these things are purgatives. You're purging through all kinds of ways, crying, laughing, shaking, sweating, urination, vomiting. There's all these different ways that you purge. And so when you come out the other side, you just feel clean. You just feel like, sometimes you could feel slightly drained, but mostly people just feel like, wow, like I just feel like I got myself back. So it seems like it kind of gives people a clean slate, a fresh start. But of course, there's all kinds of, disclaimers and setup. It's got to be done in the right light.
And what's the difference between pre and post coaching for psychedelic? What's the preparation coaching like, and what's on the other side?
So with preparation is where you're going to start to get in touch with what it is that you want to change. So we're just kind of warming ourselves up to the work. If you just go into a psychedelic experience and you're not prepared for it, it can be difficult. If you haven't really tapped into what is truly going on, because I think we have an image of ourselves, and then we have who we really are, right? So I have who I think I am, and then there's who other people see me as, and then there's who I really am. And so when those don't match up and you just jump into a psychedelic experience and all of a sudden you got this mirror in front of you that's telling you like how you really are and how you show up to other people, it's tough. And so what you're doing in the preparation is you're warming up to it. You're saying, okay, let's take an inventory of our life. What is going well? What do we like about ourselves? What do we like about our life? Where is there some hiccups and challenges, and especially long-term suffering and chronic issues, right? Like somebody keeps going, running out of money, going broke and bankrupt. Somebody keeps going through a partner. Every 3 months, they have a new partner. Someone continues to fall into sickness. They just can't get out of it. So specifically, we want to look at those situations where I'm stuck in a rut. I've been stuck in this rut for a decade or 2 decades. What's connected to it? Because if I just step into a journey and I start seeing this stuff, and I resist it, I'm going to start throwing up. I'm going to start complaining. All my defenses are going to come up, right? I'm not going to be able to just like let go and lean into that. So in the preparation phase, we're warming up to the work. We're starting to identify what are things I want to work on and what might that work look like when it shows up. And we're looking at the stillness, the silence as well. How do I just be quiet. Like I've heard people say, if you don't know if you could handle a psychedelic experience, go sit in the park for an hour and just watch. Don't say anything. Meditate. Go to a float tank. If you know about floating, it's like go into a float tank for 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I used to love doing that. But it's like it messes up my hair. I don't love the all the salt in my hair. Now they have virtual flotation tanks. There is one in when I lived in Santa Monica at the Bulletproof Labs. They had that. It's really cool. It's like a capsule that spins and with sound and light, and you get into theta brainwaves within 3 minutes. That's pretty cool. And also my friend Don Wood, who has a center in here in Florida. I forgot where. I just it escapes me, but I've been there, and he's got a capsule like that, and that's pretty cool. And yeah, the last time I did it, I went on a journey inside the capsule.
Very cool. Yeah. So that prep is just warming people up. People need different kinds of prep, but whether it's a psychedelic experience or it's a different kind of brain technology that people are going through or sensory experience, there's all kinds of stuff on the market these days to sort of walk people into this interspace where people can silence their mind, still their body, and be with the difficult stuff. So that's what we're doing in the prep. We're just preparing people to be with the difficult stuff
Hmm.
and the good stuff too, right? Like all of it, and just to be present with it, let go of attachments, expectations. And then the integration is all about integrating what came up, right? So through the experience, you're having visions, you're having insights, you're having
Hmm.
downloads, as people say. You're revisiting troubling childhood memories, traumatic events. You're seeing all the greatness in life that you've been avoiding. And then what we're looking for in the integration is like, what's the lesson? What's the insight? What's the lesson? And what's the directive? What have we learned in this experience that we want to take and we want to integrate it into our life? And so we're preparing people to go in to the
Hmm.
interspace, to be honest with themselves, to have the courage and bravery to sit with what's there, and then we're taking those lessons from the experience and then we're integrating them afterward, which happens through self-care practices, self-reflective practices, changing, improving one's routine. You're kind of getting a jump start. So yeah, that's what we do in preparation integration coaching.
Yeah, awesome. And Dr. Wood is in Orlando. It's just I can't believe I forgot. Like I live in Miami, it's Orlando. So that's pretty amazing. And before we started the podcast, we had a little chat, and you talked about people doing the work. What does it mean to do the work?
Yeah, so doing the work, is something that I don't think that I understood for most of my life either. You just kind of, I don't feel like there's a lot of training on how to be human. I kind of feel like we just kind of model our surroundings and we go with the flow. And then someday we start to realize, I don't like who I am, or I don't like my life results, and I want to change it. And then when we try to change, it's really hard, right? And so I feel like there's like a whole trillion-dollar industries like dedicated to help people to figure out behavioral change. I mean, that's essentially what the mental health system is all about, is like mental and behavioral change. And then you have the whole coaching industry, and then you have just like the whole self-help and self-improvement industry. All of it is really to look at, okay, what power do I have to change my experience of things and my outcomes in life? And what we see when we try to change is it's really hard. And so then we
Yeah.
start to look at, okay, do I have the ability to change? Are things just preset, or can I change things? Because even if we do, we tend to go back to our norm after like 30 days, right? So then it kind of led me on a journey to say, okay, what is the process of change? How do we change? And to what degree do humans have the ability to improve their circumstance? So this is I would say, our entire mission with Being True to You is the journey of the true self and authenticating for oneself. What does it mean to be true to yourself? What is my value system? What is the most important thing to me in life? And what are my guiding principles? What guides me in
Mhm.
life? Did I just pick up some modern principles off the street, off the internet, and I just like, oh, those sound good, and I'm going to go for those? Or did I truly?
A lot of people do this these days. They just like there's so much virtue signaling everywhere. People don't know anything about anything, but they just quote something that sounds really cool or put a flag on or whatever symbols, and all of a sudden they feel special, and it's almost like they feel special, but this is the most unspecial thing one can do, because they don't think for themselves. They don't even have their own opinion. They're so uh, sucked into the collective ideology, or the need to be a part of a tribe, that they don't think for themselves. So how do you teach people to think for themselves and really connect deep with their values?
I just love what you said. I mean, that's really what it is, right? That's what we teach of being true to you. It's a very individual process, because I feel like most of the world is like, okay, how do we change the world out there? How do we make those people act different so those people don't help those people? And how do we improve the global situation? And I think, well, if we are spiritual beings in a spiritual body, it's not about improving the global situation. It's about improving ourselves, right? It comes down to the personal work.
Yeah.
And we hear this metaphor time and time again that's used on the airplane. That's like, if there's a situation with the airplane, you secure your own mask first, and then you help the person next to you, right? We
This
all
is the
know that.
second time I'm hearing this today.
Is it? That's so
It's so
funny.
funny.
It is funny.
Yeah.
But it's like, we learn this for a reason, because it's important that we take care of ourselves. And so I feel like in our modern culture, we have just completely forgot about all of that. And we just point the finger of like, that's not good. That's not good. That needs to change. You people are hurting you people. You guys need to be different. And so we take a completely different perspective at being true to you. And we look at what is that work. And as you say, it's going within oneself and saying, what do I believe? What resonates with me? What does my intuition say about why I'm in this body, what my purpose is, what I'm here to do? Because I feel like a lot of the answers can be deduced through reasoning personally. And I feel like it is a little bit careless to just follow mainstream culture, because mainstream culture is just very lost and, in a sense, just chasing that next pursuit, that next high, that next sense of fulfillment. And a lot of it is just really fake, what's being created. And I
Yes.
think then what we're seeing is like these epidemic proportions of people becoming depressed, wanting to commit suicide, or actually committing suicide, turning to addiction, turning to unhealthy things that are causing anxiety and insomnia, right? We're just like, if we really look at it, the mental health problem and the addiction problem has only gotten worse. The more programs we have out there,
Yes.
has not reversed it. It's just climbing. And so, yeah, I think, just to answer the question on how to do the work, well, I'll name some things there. And then, part of that is authenticating our belief system. But I would say we have to develop self-awareness and really start to monitor our thoughts, and just become so self-reflective that we can see, okay, the connection between my thoughts, like what is the output of my thoughts? Like when I hold on to these thoughts, what is it creating? And then what's the connection to my emotion? What's the connection to my behaviors? What's the connection to my lifestyle? And then what's my outcome? Like what are the yields I'm getting in my life? Because really, whatever we're creating in our life, to some degree, is manufactured by ourselves. And so doing the work is to observe the outputs that we're putting out, and to say, is this true? Is this accurate? Is this positive? Is this healthy? Is this good for me? Are these things that I'm just looping on from adverse events in my life? Or are these things I've chosen to do? Like, where did all of these patterns come from? And is there a way to optimize them? Right. So that's part of it, just the self-awareness. And then I would say searching oneself for where we are off. Like it could be shortcomings, wrongdoings, living outside of our value system. Like you said, virtual signaling, doing things just for appearance, just for image, but not things that really feel good. And, I find stuff every day. I've been doing this work for a long time. I would say a solid decade and a half for sure. And every day I find shortcomings and I find things that I can improve. And just imagine if we all did that. So that's the work, right? The work isn't taking a bunch of psychedelics or going to a bunch of expensive programs or being at all of the fancy events and putting on a show. It's like the work is the vulnerability. The work is identifying, how can I be a better person? How could I be more patient, more reliable, more compassionate, all of these things. And then ultimately you find where you're snagged and you let go of those attachments, right? Because we're just full of attachments, like I was saying earlier, to the material world. And so I'm going inside of myself and I'm saying, Where am I attached to an expectation, to an outcome, to a comfort that is impeding my ability to be true to myself? So, those are some things. And then I think a big part of it is authenticating our value system, because what we worship, what we idolize, what we hold to be true becomes us. That's who we become. And so if we just adopt a bunch of modern principles because they feel good, and they do feel good, a modern principle would be like, follow your bliss, right? Will you follow what feels good? And it's like, well, bad things feel good, and so
Yeah.
what happens is when people normalize it, they're just like, oh yeah, I'm going to do a bunch of drugs and have a bunch of sexual partners, and I'm just going to stop paying taxes, and it just feels good, and I do what I want. I'm living, with nature or whatever. And like a narrative is created around it, and it's like, but then there's an emptiness underneath, because there's all these heartbreaks that are happening. There's an unhealthy lifestyle. There's too much altered states going on, right? So anyway, I just think that that's the most important thing, is to actually stop and say, what is my faith? What is my worldview? Where did I get it from? How did I authenticate that? Because everything that we do falls from that, right? And, I think that this is really why I don't advocate for psychedelic therapies, but I think this is why it helps people, because I think it's a time for them to actually go in and have that true conversation with themselves and peel back their whole material world reality and just look for themselves at, what is this getting me? And is this in alignment with my heart and my higher purpose?
So, thank you for sharing all that. What are some tools that one can use to break through addiction to suffering?
Interesting. So people that get addicted to suffering in general.
I think most of us do to some degree. I know. Okay, I'm talking about, if I just look at me, I kind of like the hero's journey. I like rising from my own ashes. I like struggle. I get almost like an erotic charge from struggling and being the underdog. And I notice, like, after doing a lot of work, I can look at myself and be like, okay, Orion, once again, you don't have to suffer to get to where you need to be. There are other ways, but there is something about, for me, about the struggle, about the suffering that turns me on. So, and I think we all, to some degree, get some rewards from complaining, from suffering, from poor me, victim mentality, and some. Even though a lot of us are very aware of spiritual concepts, we are human, and as human beings, we sometimes fall into those places. So, what would be some tools to kind of like work with it?
I'll first say that we like suffering and struggle because it equals growth, and we like the triumph. That's how we grow.
Mhm.
Imagine I've written a textbook on this in the coach training, on the significance of human suffering and hardship, and how we can leverage human hardship and suffering for the growth. And I think that's why people like Joseph Campbell's analogy of the hero's journey. I think that that's just such a
Right.
good representation of why we struggle and why we get to those places of abysmal, where we're just like hopeless and in despair and thinking, I have to give up, I have to throw in the towel. But if we look at the hero's journey, it's like, no, you're in that part of the journey that's really hard, and you have to go within to find the light instead of looking outside. And so if you can break through, it's going to be even greater on the other side. So I think for one, the suffering is very significant. It is good. And I do think people create it. In fact, I've had clients before who come from very wealthy families who have told me, I feel like I just created this behavior, addictive or criminal behavior, because I was bored. My life was too easy. Everything was
Yeah.
handed to me. So they're like, I had to mix it up. So just to say first that I do see the value in it, and I do think we create that. I mean, I'm a female entrepreneur, so I could say that I do that to myself all the time, right? Is ask for my own suffering, but it's because we do want that challenging. I like to climb mountains because it's hard, but I like that feeling of getting to the top and back down. And then there's the unnecessary
Mm.
suffering, right? There's the suffering that we're perpetuating, complaining about, We're going to the doctors. We're like, I need help. And it's the stuff that we're not knowingly creating, or we don't know where the origins are. We don't really know where it comes from. So there's a lot of different tools that people can use. I think it's never really about the tool. It's about the transformation and the alchemy that's happening from the tool. And that's where we get to the work,
Yes.
right? A lot of times we put the work as using the tool, but that's not the work. The work is what's happening in me when I use the tool, right? So we can use tools all day long, but it doesn't mean that it's going to help us. So things that people could do, I would say the most common are going to be meditation, right? Starting small. It doesn't have to be a specific branded meditation, because if you grab a meditation that comes from a specific lineage, there's a lot that comes with that. And so when you're starting out, before you go get initiated in some, meditation practice, because you don't really know what comes with that, just, practice meditating 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, because what happens is that we have natural cleansing and healing and strengthening mechanisms in our body already if we can just shut down the mental chatter and just relax our bodies. That's why sleep is so important, right? Sleep is very detoxing. You go sleep for 8 hours, you wake up, you're refreshed, because the body does its work just when we stop getting in the way. So that's what you really want to think about when you're thinking about tools, is like, how can I stop getting in my own way? It's not always what I need to take or use. It's often, what do I need to let go of and stop doing? And so that's really what meditation is. And you can do seated meditation, closed eye meditation. And for some people, they might go walking meditation. So things like that are really going to be helpful. I already mentioned like float tanks. These are things that help meditate you, because it can be hard to sit still. You can use techniques like a flotation tank, where you're like laying in water and you have an hour session. There might be a little bit of music at the beginning and the end. And so it's going to encourage you to stay in your pod when you have like an actual session. I think any kind of, physical activity is going to be good too. Using the body, moving the body, stretching. Of course, a lot of people are doing yoga these days, and Pilates, and martial arts. Like, just think about how martial arts has cultivated people for, the beginning of time. I mean, really, we could go back as far as we could in ancient history, and it's like they had martial arts, right? And then you could get into dance, things like this, or art, music, things like this can also help us let go of our angst and our patterns in this world. And we just kind of like let it go. We let it flow into the music or the dance. So these are things that help cultivate us. Breath work has become really popular. I see you just did a good podcast on that. I think breath work is another way where we are using our consciousness and we're using our body, but we're actually still. We're moving into that space of like stillness and quietness. We're getting out of our own way, oxygenating our body, really giving ourselves that life. And that can be helpful. Nature, of course, like I think getting out in nature is always helpful when we can get away from the electricity and the radiation of Wi-Fi, and we can just get outside under the sun. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I can just go sit in the sun for 5 minutes and I'm just like restored. And there's a study that came out. I don't have it on me, so we'd have to look it up, but that showed that 5 minutes of sunshine is more powerful a day than an antidepressant, to make someone happy. So you can imagine those studies they just disappear. No one wants you to know that sunshine's what you need, right? So sitting out in the sun, water has always been cleansing. I mean, you think about baptisms and things like this, water is very cleansing. So going and doing cold plunges in a river, jumping into a lake, I think these things can be helpful. Any kind of flow activities, I think, can be meditative. That could be things like rock climbing or, fire spinning. I don't know. There's all kinds of flow activities out there that are interesting. And then there's a lot of like little tools, like, people can do, like scan the body for tension. So if I'm really tense, I can just start here and I can just scan down, and then I can see where I'm tense. And I'm like, oh, it's right here. It's right under my ribs. I'm actually telling the truth. I can actually feel it right here. And so I can feel a little bit of tenseness, right? And that's where breath work and meditation can help, where I'm kind of like breathing in that space, and my conscious is just lightly on it. So it starts to disperse. Actually, it already worked. just by acknowledging that, you can start to feel it
Mm,
like moving. So those are some of the things that you can do. It doesn't have to be this big ticket item where you spend a ton of money and you go to all these, this private island somewhere in the world. Like all of these things can be done at
that's
home in
nice
your
though.
backyard.
I want to go to a private island.
Oh,
And
yes.
I'm getting what you're saying.
Yes, but like sometimes that's what I think people think is like, I don't have any money, so I can't heal, I can't do the work. And it's like, it's not that way. I think the world is actually a lot more fair than we realize. I think everyone does have that opportunity to do the work from within their own home with whatever one has. There's a lot of brain technologies coming out and apps coming out, and sound beds and light therapies and all kinds of stuff, which is great. These are great tools. But again, it's what's happening in your body that matters. It doesn't matter the tool that you're using. It matters,
Right.
what am I
So true.
allowing myself to recognize and let go of versus hold on to.
Yeah, this morning I did some moving meditation with music, and my eyes were closed, and I was kind of like moving, and there was sunshine on my face, and my eyes were closed, but it was when I was moving, my face went from shadow to feeling the sun on my face, and it was such a yummy experience. It made my day so much better. And I love what you're saying. It's even 5 minutes, even just a little bit every day. And Louise Hayes says if you love yourself just a little bit more every day, the end of the year, you'll see such expansion. And what is loving yourself is taking care of yourself, is moving, is breathing, is drinking water. It's all loving yourself. So thank you for sharing so many tools. You're a very generous person. You're like, let me give you the list of everything under the sun. It was really cool. Thank you. Um, Amazing. Before we say goodbye for now, what are your three top tips to living a stellar life?
Good question. Being true to yourself is a big theme that we have, and we talked about that. Going within and peeling back all of the social influence and just diving in and maybe journaling or meditating on it, self-reflecting, having powerful conversations to say, what does it mean to be true to myself, right? And then putting almost a moral compass to that so that we have direction. Looking within, that is the second thing I'll mention. In order to solve problems and resolve conflicts and level up, we have to improve ourselves. There's no shortcut, and I would say that's really my third thing is there is no external solution to the true goals and fulfillment of our mission that we want to do and to the resolution of the problems that we suffer. There are tools again, but we have to understand that it's an inner process. From what I understand, we're spiritual beings. We're here on a spiritual journey. And so everything that's happening is not happening to us, it's happening for us. It's all an opportunity. And so when the moment strikes, it could be getting triggered, it could be a conflict, it could be something that's individual or attack at your family, community, or it could be the whole nation is going through it. Whatever it is, we want to look within and say, how did I create or allow this? Or how am I allowing this to affect me? And what could I do to improve myself and my state? I mean, that to me is how we create a stellar life for everyone, is really looking within to be our best.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Deanne. And where can people find you and learn more about you and your coaching, your coaches, all of it?
So you could go to beingtruetoyou.com, all spelled out. You could find us there on the website. You can fill out our contact form or just give us a call. We'd love to chat with you. We work with individuals through all states of suffering from a coaching perspective. And so we can pair you with the best matched coach. We have amazing coaches at every level around the country and even outside the country. We speak multiple languages, so we can help in so many ways. And we also provide training. So if you're a professional or a student and you want to learn, how do I support people through their transformational experiences or through integration or through psychedelic therapies, we have very unique coach training program that we could talk to you about. And then we also do before and after care, like I said, for retreats and clinics. And so if you're running a company, you have any kind of holistic clinic, healing clinic program, we could talk to you about doing a preparation and integration for your clients. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. So just go to Being True to You official on Instagram or Being True to You on Facebook. You can find us there and say hi. We'd love to hear from you and know that you watch the podcast and just learn about your unique situation, how we could help. Thank you, Orion.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for everything. That was really powerful, and thank you for the incredible work you do to help the world. And thank you, listeners. Remember to go within and find your true self. Look within for self improvement. Look and remember that everything is within you now. And when the moment strikes, just go in and ask yourself, how did I attract it? Why is this in my movie? And what can I do to improve my life right now? Because the goal is to have joy and bliss and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.